Hello, everyone. Hope you all are doing great. A very warm welcome to our today's Learning Lab session. And on behalf of APF, me, Tejashvi, your host today, would like to thank you all for joining us for the most interesting topics. I know from where and all our audience are here with us today. So I'll share the screen and I would like to know from where and all our audience are from. You all can let us know where and all are you from. Okay, let me share my screen.
Yes.
Okay.
Centimeter, I don't know.
You able to see the screen?
Yes.
And I've shared the screen in the chat box. We shared the code. It's 1686 686 0334. Okay, hope everyone is able to see the screen now. Okay, we have people from Hong Kong, Stockholm, Johannesburg, South Africa, USA, Argentina, South America, Minneapolis, Canada, Kenya,
Hi, Oliver from Kenya. Hi, Maureen from Minneapolis. I do see you.
okay.
Thank you. We can see we have people from all over. Thank you so much for taking your time to join us today for our storytelling session. You are all greatly appreciated.
Okay, Nora. Then I would like to hand over this virtual stage of ours to you now, and I would like to introduce yourself to our audience today and to connect with them to begin the story. And I would like to request everyone else to kindly keep yourself muted during the discussion. If you have any questions, please share it in the chat box and we'll be taking them at the end of the session. Thank you.
And there will also be a recording of this at the end of the session, or later, Teju will communicate that. So, well, I will not deny that I am nervous, but thank you for having me, APF, and for making this possible. Today, we are going to talk about navigating the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And my name is Norah Orina. I currently work as a business application consultant at a finance technology company. And this is a global organization. So we work with people from India, Germany, Canada, all over. I just wanted to start my story from Kenya. I am originally from Kenya, and I grew up mostly in Nairobi. Nairobi is the capital city of Kenya, and it is huge. Not sure if you've been to Nairobi, please put it in the chat. Hi. But so I grew up in Nairobi mostly, and I went to high school in a place called Kitale, St. Bridget's High School. And after my high school, I joined Kenyatta University, which is in Nairobi. And this is where I took my undergraduate in psychology. And they had a wonderful program in Kenyatta University that covered different topics. And it was during my last semester where we took industrial organizational psychology. And that is pretty much a scientific study of the workplace. So it looks at the productivity of people, satisfaction, what makes people productive at the office. What do you need to do to make them, productive and have a good, organization. And I was really intrigued by this because I thought to myself, this is all the psychology in the workplace, and this is what I want to do. And so the downside of this was Kenya at that time did not have a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology. And so I was praying for a miracle to get a scholarship or something to go to the US, because that is where I wanted to go. Everyone in Kenya knows that people dream of going to the United States. It's a dream come true when you get to the US because they wonder what life is like abroad. And it's an opening for new opportunities, to help yourself and your family back home. And so it was here that I started dreaming of going to the US. And I was very lucky that as soon as I graduated, a very close family friend had helped me apply for the diversity visa lottery. And this is through the diversity visa program. And I want to thank, whoever started that program, because they provided me an opportunity to come to the US. And yes, I won the lottery. And so many people apply for that, and it's hard to get that. But I almost wanted to change my name to be lucky, because it was amazing to be able to win the lottery and come to the US. And this was right after I graduated from Kenyatta University. And so it was perfect. And I was like, okay, all my stars are aligning. I'm going to go to the US and I'm going to, study industrial organizational psychology. And it was also during my last year in Kenyatta University that I worked in Kenya for a little bit. I worked for this organization, a great organization called Research Plus Africa. And what we were doing was going into communities to check on initiatives that had been started. And so this was to do with the girl child education. And so what we were to do was go into communities, talk to them, interview them. And this was my first glance of diversity. This was the first time I experienced, being in a different community, having people doing things differently, living in a different way. That was the first time I experienced that. And then after that, after working at Research Plus Africa, it was an eye-opening experience, like living with the people and seeing their day-to-day life, and that was different. But then it wasn't so different because Nairobi is very diverse. It's huge. It's a metropolitan city. And so you can imagine all the 42 tribes, not all of them, but most of them would be in Nairobi. And so it was a pretty diverse setup. And so after that, after my graduation, after getting news that I had gotten the lottery, I was to get on a plane and fly to the US. And so I had my family and my friends say goodbye to me, and I said goodbye to them. And it was one of the hardest things to do, leave your family at home and just venture into a new land by yourself, without any support you think of. Not any, but you can have some support, but you're leaving behind the life and you're going into a new place without knowing what it would be like. And so that is how I ended up in the United States and began my journey in the US. Now, some people ask me, of all the states in the US, you decided to go to Minnesota, right? And this is because Minnesota is known for its winters. Let no one ever try to explain to you what the cold feels like in Minnesota, because it's 10 times worse than that. And this is the place that I decided to come to, and this is the place where I started my life in the US. So when I got to the US, the thing is, the diversity visa program is great. It provides you a visa. And what this program does is give immigrants an opportunity to come to the US. And every year, countries are eligible for this, and you can apply if your country is eligible. And it will select a limited amount of people to come and immigrate to the US. And so it's great. You get a visa, and then you show up at the airport and you're like, what am I supposed to do? There's no structure of, okay, this is where you're going to live, this is what you're going to do. No, you just get there and you have to figure it out yourself. If you don't have a family, if you don't have friends, then it can be quite difficult, because now you have to navigate a new place by yourself. And so when I got to the US, I was very passionate about going to school, and I wanted to go to school as soon as I got to the US. And one thing led to another, and I ended up in South Dakota State. Now, before I say how I ended up in South Dakota State University, when you get to the US, you meet maybe some people from your country, and you interact with them and you ask them, hey, what can I do that would help me, And people will direct you towards the things they're used to and the things they're familiar with. And so people would tell me, once you get to the US, you need to get into the healthcare industry, and you want to be a nurse, And I said to myself, I never dreamed of being a nurse. I never wanted to be a nurse. And I kept asking them, why can't I choose what I want to do? Because there are so many opportunities out here. But the fear of the unknown. And so for the people who love nursing, that's amazing. You can do that and you can grow, and it's great. But if that's not your passion, you don't have to do it. That's what I can say. And so I decided to do IO, organizational psychology. And it was tough because I chose this path, yet it was a very unknown path. And everyone would say, as soon as you're done with school, some people would say, as soon as you're done with school, you will not get a job and you will just be there and it will be hard for you. But I figured this is what I really wanted. And so I went to South Dakota State to study this. Before this, I met a family that adopted me. Yes, I was adopted at 24. And this was an American family that was kind enough to take me in and help me navigate, being new in the US, because there are so many things that you need to know about that unfortunately people don't, know about them. You need to know about credit scores, you need to know about driving, you need to know about schools, you need to know about jobs and resumes and all that. And so I was very lucky to have a family, an American family, that took me in and showed me all these things. And all I know from that family is love, kindness, and goodness. And I thank them so much because they were there as a support system and they were there to guide me through all of this. And so they drove me to South Dakota State, and then I started my IO degree. And this was the first year of the program. And crazy as it sounds, I was the only student. I was the only graduate student at that time. And so it was just me and my professor. So unfortunately, I had to do all my homework because I was the only student. And if I didn't do any research, they would ask Norah because I was the only one. I couldn't look behind, but anyway. And so as I went through my program, it was a wonderful program because it had such a diversity of professors. So some of them were from Nigeria. There was one was from, I think, Japan. And it was a diverse program already. And I felt at home. And again, I was happy because I was able to find a house that where I lived with Nigerians and Ghanaians. And that also felt close to home because they're from Africa and they understand. And that was good because sometimes you would end up living alone or you would end up not having, anyone that you know. And so I really had a good program and I enjoyed my time there. And I'd like to also thank South Dakota State University for all of their efforts and resources that they pour into increasing diversity and inclusion through education. And this school has been home to so many students from Africa, from India, from Burkina Faso, from Congo, from South Africa, from Iran, from Saudi Arabia. Think about all those countries and you find those students at SDSU. And it was amazing. It was a great time because I got immersed in those cultures and I was able to talk to people from different countries and hear their opinions and talk to them about how they live their lives, talk to them about, their experiences. And we were all in the same journey. We were all trying to get an education and we were all moving towards the same direction. And so that was my experience at SDSU. And before I left SDSU, I did my internship in Pierre, South Dakota. And this is a small town and it has like one or three big buildings. And it was a really small town. And I will be honest with you, sometimes the streets and I would be I never saw a Black person during my internship there, really. And sometimes I would walk and someone would look at you for about 10 minutes as you walk by and you would wonder, should I be in a museum somewhere to be looked at because what's going on? And it was crazy. I mean, and you try to understand, maybe they've never seen a Black person and they were wondering, where are they from, And so those are some of my experiences, but I had a really good time at my internship at the Bureau of Human Resources. And these people had knowledge in organization development. And so it was a really good time and we interacted and it was great. And so after that, I graduated from South Dakota State University with my IO psychology degree. And I was so pumped, to go into the world and start practicing IO psychology. And I want to tell you that there's a huge difference between the education and the real world. Because you sit down and you think, okay, this is going to be easy. I'm just going to go into organizations and ask them what's wrong and fix it and move on, And that's not what happens. It doesn't happen as easy as that. And so after finishing my SDSU degree, I started looking for a job. It took me about 3 months to find a job. And that was a tough time because you're sending resumes and you are hopeful and you have all this passion around IO psychology and you're trying to get into the, and you're doing this, on your own, trying to research jobs, research companies. And remember, you're just Kenya, you don't really know what organizations are like in the US, and you haven't worked in the US yet. And so just a little experience from your internship. But again, you don't have much experience at that point. And so I was lucky to get a contract for a year, and this was for manager in training. And I worked at a place called the 3M Center, and it was a huge organization. And here, I never thought of diversity and inclusion because it mimicked the environments that I was used to. I was used to diverse peoples walking around, and I would see this at STSU, and we would have activities for, the different countries and everyone, and the culture would be shared. And I never thought of diversity and inclusion at that time. I just felt fine, And then I already felt included because I saw people that looked like me. I saw people that looked so different. Everyone was just having a good time. And I also had leaders that looked like me. And so when I say leaders, this would be my managers, and this would be the executive, the VP people. And, I felt like included, and I felt good about this, and I felt like, okay, this is going to be great. And I was still, having that passion to keep on working along my IO degree field. And it felt very safe because, you had all these people that mimicked your home, kind of. And so I didn't feel awkward. It didn't feel awkward as in any way. And then now, after working at that huge, diverse organization, I moved to the next organization because I felt I needed to look for more opportunities that were in line with what I really wanted. And so I moved from that organization. And so I ended up working in another organization that I would say was not so diverse, and it was a small organization. And this is where now I started to think about diversity and inclusion a lot, because something shifted in me, because now I've shifted from all these environments that I'm used to that are so diverse. And then now you find yourself in an environment where you're a blue ball in a group of green balls. And as you can see in my in my slide. And so what was it like working in this organization? First of all, the people were wonderful. The people were welcoming. The people were, helpful and ready to, have conversation with you and help. But that is not, it was different. It wasn't something that I had gone through before. And so working here, it made me not feel included. And I want to point out some things. Sometimes it's not about someone saying something directly to you that I don't want to include you. It's not that. It's going to be actions. It's going to be nonverbal cues. It's going to be different things that are most of the time not intentional. And I'm going to repeat that because I don't feel like any of these things were intentional. They were not trying to intentionally not include me, But here I am, a different, race, and it's different for everyone. Once you meet, different people, you react differently. And so I did not feel included in this organization. And all of that leads to not feeling safe because, one, you don't see leaders that look like you, and you question that. And you wonder, okay, why is that the case? Why don't we have more people of color or something, in this organization? And this was also from the fact that I went to take a headshot for the organization, and a lady who takes the headshots for the organization and had done this for a couple of years said, wow, I've never seen a person of color before. And I stood back and I thought about that quite a bit, because for the past 20 years or so, or 15 years, I don't know. So you've never, seen any person of color in this organization. And yeah, and it was a moment to think. It was a moment to wonder why that was the case. And I kept wondering, okay, has there been no one who was qualified for any of the jobs applied? Were there no, people applying for these jobs from diverse groups? So you just ask yourself certain questions and you wonder. And also, this now led to the creation of a DE&I committee, because I was lucky to have a group of, colleagues who are interested in also moving the needle on this. And they were so willing to learn and to move, forward. And as the leader of the DE&I committee, it was about starting the conversation. Let's talk about this. Let's look at this, because I believe things start from a conversation. Let's talk about this. Let's see how we can change this. Let's just talk, and that's how we started those conversations. And it led to more and more, traction on diversity and inclusion, equity and inclusion as well. And being a DE&I committee leader, I learned a lot from the DE&I space. And I started to research about DE&I, and I heard so many stories of, Black women who at work would have to behave a certain way, would have to walk and talk a certain way, would have to do certain things to be included. And that is not them. And it's quite difficult to be looked at as the, blue ball in a group of green people and not be included. And I had stories of, hardworking women who tried so hard and went to school, but they were still looked at as, you don't fit that. You're not fit to be an executive. You're not fit to be, a leader. And other people got promoted and they were overlooked. And when you hear such stories, it's very painful. And it's very hurtful, because you're over here and you have all this energy and you have all these dreams and you have all this talent that you want to share. And there's people who don't want that success for you. And this is because of your color, because of your age, because of your, disability. And those are things that should not happen in any, should not happen, but they do. And so starting to think about these things, I started to interact with more diversity, inclusion, and diversity, equity, and inclusion people, and the conversation continued. And it continued to help me understand what goes on. I don't fully understand it. And throughout my talk, I am consciously not including terminologies like microaggressions and conscious bias, because I just feel like you can get lost in the terminology and forget the message, because sometimes the message is simple and we try to use terminologies and we lose that. And so after working in this not so diverse organization, I thought about contrasting and comparing between two people. So let's look at person A. Person A, let's say, is comfortable where they work. They're included, they feel safe, they're good. So they just wake up, take a shower, have breakfast, and they are so ready to go and take on the world on their day, And they have all these ideas they're ready to share with their colleagues. and they have all this energy and positivity and good vibes. And then now let's contrast with person B. Person B is already frazzled as soon as they wake up. And they're already wondering, I'm already tired. I'm emotionally, physically, mentally drained already, you know? And this happens through interactions that are negative at the workplace and because of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And think about person B. They're like, I need to talk different. I need to dress different. I need to be different. I need to behave differently, you know? And this already is making you lack authenticity already. You're not authentic. And by the time you go to work, you're already on low, on empty, and you're tired. And would this person really be productive? No, I don't think so. So maybe in the chat we can put, are you person A or are you person B? And we can see from the people watching. So just think about this. When you listen to people's stories and experiences, you don't know where they're coming from. You don't know what they're struggling with. And person A and person B can give you a perspective of what it actually really feels like. Now, I'll give over the screen back to Teju, and we can go into the www.menti.com and yeah, menti.com. And then what is the first word that comes to your mind when you hear the term diversity? And the code is 16860334. Maybe I can give a little definition. Wow, beauty. Actually, let me not give a definition. Let's get the definition from you guys.
That's absolutely.
Success. I love it. Innovation. Awesome. Growth. Code is 16860334.
It's on the screen as well. It's 16860334.
Cross-cultural people. The first word that comes to mind, don't think too much about this. Yep, growth again. Yep, complexity.
Inclusion.
Inclusion, yep.
Differences, opportunity. Variety.
Variety, yep. Strength. I love that. Well, my definition of diversity, not mine, sorry. I looked up the definition of diversity, and it's the presence of differences that may include race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, language, age, and so many other things. Uniqueness. Well, I think these are pretty good words to define diversity. And I love that we get to see the definitions from you, you know. And the next one, Teju, is what is the first word that comes to your mind when you hear the term equity?
Okay, let me share the screen.
Okay. All right, so again, what is the first word? Yeah, go ahead, Teju.
The code is different for this slide. We have to enter the code in the chat.
Okay.
It's 8021-5278.
Justice. Awesome. Fairness. I think another fairness. A chance. Quality. Power. Lack of selfishness. And this is from Francis. Thank you. What, just take a moment and think. When you hear the word equity, what comes to your mind? What does it mean to be equitable? Gain? And from my definition of equity, promoting justice, impartiality, and fairness within procedures, processes, and distribution of resources by either institutions or systems. All right, Teju, we can go to the last one.
Yeah.
What is the first word that comes to your mind when you think of the word inclusion? And for this one, let's add, what does it feel to you when you think of inclusion? How would it feel? Opportunity. Mm-hmm. Care. Yep.
Opportunity.
Safe and comfort. Yep. Acceptance. Authenticity.
Belonging.
Support. Growth.
Acceptance.
Embrace. Willingness. Willingness of good. Embrace. Well, thank you guys so much for this, your contribution on this, because this is just beautiful to see what diversity, equity, and inclusion would mean and feel to you, because this shifts the conversation to how do we move towards this? Because sometimes you're told what to do, but you're not told how to do it. And you have to figure that out. And it's tough when you need to figure something out that is so, in one of the definitions, someone said complexity, because it is complex. Anything to do with you, very complex. And so thank you for your contributions. I'll go ahead and continue on with this quote that I think about a lot. And it says, diversity is being included to the party and inclusion is being asked to dance. Now, just being invited to the party is not enough. This is how I think about it. Dancing at the party and having fun with people, having conversation with people, well, that's what we would want. So you just don't want to be invited and then you'll sit at a corner by yourself because you're not able to be authentic and you're not able to talk to people. I think about funny conversations I had with some people at some time, and a lady once asked me, how do you talk to Black people? And this was an American lady, and we were just having a conversation. And I was just curious to know what was going through her mind when she asked that. And when she responded, it just seemed to me that you think there's a way to talk to a certain group of people. There's a way to address them. There's a way to relate with them. In the morning, when you go to work and you're just with your, if I'm from Kenya and I'm with Kenyans, I don't think about that, because you all understand each other. You can talk about whatever, and you don't think about how will I talk to Norah today, just because Teju is from India, or Teju, I don't know where you're from, I'm sorry. And
I am from India. I am from India, but I stay in UK.
Okay. How will I talk to Teju? What will I say? You just need to Teju as a normal individual. And through that, someone else sees your authenticity and they can just be comfortable with you, And through that, Teju will share with me down the line. I know she's going to mention India, and we are going to start talking about India. I'll talk about Kenya. She'll talk about her experiences in India. And it's just a normal flow, But if I start off from that foot of Teju is different from me, how do I talk to Teju? And asking Google, how do I talk to an Indian? I don't know. I don't understand that. But those are some of the things that happen. And now I just wanted to move on to the book that I'm currently reading right now is Think Like a Monk. And thank you, Maureen, for suggesting this book to me, because it was very relevant when I was thinking about these slides. And please don't focus on the picture and don't get lost. But Teju, actually, am I sharing my screen?
Yes, you are sharing.
Okay. So when you think about yourself in a situation. Now, for example, when I found myself in this small organization that is not so diverse, so many things run through your mind. And in daily interactions with people, when I go to get food and I go to the drive-through and I try to order and someone cannot understand my accent, such things can be very frustrating, you know? Or you're on the phone, you're trying to pay a bill and someone keeps saying, I can't understand you because of your accent. Sometimes those things seem pretty light, but they can be very tough because you're trying to complete a task and you have these barriers already. And these are like your accent, you can't just get rid of that. That's you know? And so when I was reading Jay Shetty's book, he says, all of us have a disease, you know? And he says, don't judge someone with a different disease just because it doesn't look like yours. And the reason why I start off from this is because when you find yourself in a situation and you're different and you're trying to interact and you're trying to make conversation, it's so easy to point fingers and say, they're not working hard enough to understand me. But sometimes it's supposed to be, what am I doing to be understood? You know, how am I working on my side? Are you working on your side? And don't expect anyone to be perfect. You know, I'm not just going to talk to Teju and it's going to be amazing because I will understand her culture and I will never do anything that is offensive to Teju because I don't understand her culture, you know. And also, you're not supposed to think that you're perfect. And in these situations, I wish I would have read this book before, because it would have helped me to process what was happening while I was in this organization and my other interactions outside of my organization that were difficult for me. And it talks about digging to the root, diagnosing and clarifying a situation so that you can explain it to yourself. Now, when things happen and you're in a situation and you're reacting, it's very difficult to stop, to dig to the root and diagnose it because you feel wronged already, you know? But that kind of thinking already puts you in this place where it's difficult for you to get out, because now you'll be in your thoughts and you'll be thinking things of yourself, of others. And this is how sometimes people lose their dreams, because you're so smart, but you can't communicate at a job. And it's frustrating because people will say, I'm not listening to you because I don't understand you. And yet you have a message, you have talent, you have something you want to share with them. And so sometimes just digging through and trying to diagnose the issue and saying, oh, what if I go and learn English and talk, you know, better so that I can be understood, you know, and this other person on this side saying, how about I try to listen, you know, intentionally to hear what you're trying to say. And that can be helpful, because you find yourself in these situations in life where it's never easy to just remove yourself from a situation, you know, when something difficult comes up. So like, for example, when I was in the organization that wasn't that diverse, I would have just said I quit because I don't want to try to be in this organization and I want to be somewhere else that is diverse. But it's never that easy to just quit and just move on. And sometimes you have to figure out how to navigate through these situations. And I listen a lot to Jermaine Davis, and this is a wonderful keynote speaker on diversity and inclusion. And in one of his presentations, he talked about how his grandmother always said, Jermaine, your audio should always match your video. So it's never about just saying things. It's about following with an action. For example, Teju comes to me and says, Norah, I was offended because you did this and it's offensive to me in my culture. Pointing at me like this is offensive to me in my culture. And instead of me going, what? I did not know that. Why didn't you tell me? You know, I can take a step back and say to Teju, thank you for letting me know, and I will work on it. And this means me not pointing at Teju again, because I know that it's offensive to Teju. And this audio should match your video, goes into so many things as leaders in your teams. You're trying to build DEI, you know, in your teams, and you're trying to create cohesive teams and great teams. But if as a leader, you just talk and you don't follow it up with actions, it's very difficult. Like as a leader, you can say, I want to build my team to be very culturally intelligent, but how do you do that? And how do you follow up on that? Now, in his book too, Jay Shetty talks about reversing external negativity. And he talks about certain things. He talks about becoming an objective observer. I know things to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion can be very emotional and very mentally draining, but sometimes you have to be objective. And he talks about monks leading with awareness, and it begins with awareness. Actually, it begins with knowing what is happening in your situation, what is happening in your environment, and everybody will have unique environments, will have unique situations that sometimes don't have specific answers. Like you will say, Norah, I'm facing this, what do I do? And I will not give you one specific answer to it. And that's how complex this DEI stuff is. And so sometimes you need to back away slowly from a situation and come back from a point of understanding. You'll be better equipped to address that negative energy that happened. So I can be able to come back to Teju and say, yeah, I thought about it and I understand that it's offensive to you and I'm sorry. And you know, but in that moment, it's difficult to do that in that situation. And you don't want to lose your job. You don't want to lose a friendship. You don't want to, you know, lose a colleague, all of that, like lose classmates and that. But Jay Shetty also talks about the 25-75 principle, but I just put this to be DEI related. And I say for every 3 similar friends, you need to have 1 diverse friend. And maybe this can be a takeaway, because this is how we grow in diversity. You can't just have the similar people around you all the time, because you think similarly and you will do similar things, but you cannot grow in that way. And to increase your diversity, at least for every 3 similar friends, have a diverse friend, or every 2 friends have 1 diverse friend. And you need to also allocate time. So when you find yourself in these difficult situations as an international student, as an international worker, as an immigrant, as whatever, you will face issues, you will face hard times sometimes. But you need to tell yourself, how much time am I allocating to thinking about these negative situations? You know, when I was in the organization that was not so diverse, if I gave myself a chance to think about the negative things all the time, I would not have grown. I would not have moved towards having wonderful conversations with those same colleagues. I would not have moved to learning more about DEI, learning more about myself and how I need to interact with people, learning how to live with people essentially. And he says, don't be a savior. And this I think about as these very passionate DEI speakers and practitioners. And sometimes you want to save everyone. You want to remove everyone from every bad situation. You want to, keep, fighting And sometimes you can't be a savior for everyone, and so you need to provide problem-solving techniques. You need to introduce people to ideas that can help, and you need to try different things. Sometimes you try one thing, you try another thing, they don't all work the same. And organizations should strive to be working inside out. So in your organization, before you go and preach diversity, equity, and inclusion, what is happening in your organization? What are you doing about diversity, equity, and inclusion in your organization? Are you sending messages out there that you're working on DEI and you're trying to move the needle on DEI, but in the organization, nothing is happening? That relates again to the audio matching the video, because you want to be confident about the messages you're sending out there. If as an organization, you have it on your website that we are inclusive, we care about diversity, equity, and inclusion, that should reflect the organization. And it starts from home. It doesn't start from outside and then comes back home. It's home and then outside. And then building awareness and addressing situations and amending. Now, there's a difference between being aware about something, and most people just want to ignore it because it's too difficult. You want to deny it. You want to pretend that it's not there. And you need to address these situations. They're difficult conversations. It includes vulnerability, and you have to address. And this is what will lead to amending relationships and amending all the things that are supposed to be changed. And an example of this is, I'm thinking maybe I'm talking to Eric, and Eric says, "You're really smart for a woman." Such a comment can be very, when I hear that from Eric, I would say, wow, why would you say that? And this, Eric, you didn't say this. But so we will need to be aware, both of us, Eric and me. First, I need to be aware that what Eric said is not right, and Eric has to be aware that what he said is not right. Why would you say I'm too smart, to be a woman? And aren't women smart? You'll ask yourself all these questions and you'll keep digging inside your. And then Eric and I have to have a conversation to address this and say, Eric, you said this, and this is how it went through my mind, and this is how I thought about it. And then Eric goes, I'm really sorry. And Eric has to work on his end to figure out, why did that come out that way? What did he mean when he said that? Why? Digging deep inside himself. And then amending. Eric and I meet again and we say, now I understand, why it was wrong. And I thought about this because in my culture, women are just in the kitchen and they never go to work. And I just thought to myself that seeing you being up there in the executive chain meant like you're very different from these women. And I appreciate that. And you see, sometimes it's just this, and you walk through the awareness, addressing and amending, and you will have better relationships at the workplace. And he talks about the spot, stop, and swap. And that example that I just gave with Eric, you spot the issue and you stop it and you swap it with something else. Like you spotted that Eric said this and it was wrong. And Eric has to stop saying this to women, all right? And swapping it with different statements of, I really admire you, you're very smart, And I feel like I know it sounds very simple to do, but with all this that I've shared in my slides, I feel like we can head somewhere if we can be able to spot the issue and stop it and swap it with something more positive. And this is laced with empathy and compassion and having better communication and being mindful. And this is for both sides. What are the key insights for today? Striving for cultural intelligence. And the 5 C's, this is curiosity, compassion, clarity, courage. In situations, think about those things. Think about your curiosity levels. If I want to interact better with Teju, I need to know more about Teju. And I need to know where Teju, not that I need to know, but I want to know where Teju comes from so that we can have a point of interaction. You know, am I curious to know that Africa is a continent and not a country? You know, am I curious that, you know, to Google and to search, oh, how many tribes are in Kenya? People speak different languages. Wow, okay. How many tribes are in India? How many tribes are in, you know, London, whatever, you know, am I curious to understand that? What happens in South Africa? What happens in Nigeria? You know, all of that. Because sometimes you're met with very interesting questions. Like I remember a funny story where I said, we once had a missionary from Sudan come over to the US. Do you know him? And I thought, first of all, Sudan is a different country from Kenya. And there was no way I would know that person. So it's just about, you know, being curious about other cultures and having a connection and having compassion to learn and having, you know, that clarity and courage as well. And being intentional and thoughtful. All these things are not going to happen in a vacuum. All these things will not just happen. You will not just wake up and have these great relationships and have these great teams and have these great leaders, and have this, you know, wonderful world. It's not just going to happen. And you have to be intentional and you have to be thoughtful. And you never stop trying to fight for inclusion and to be better. For all those people who are in difficult situations, you never stop. And think about it this way. If you move the needle on diversity, equity, and inclusion in your organization for the people who are coming after you have left that organization, you're making it better already for the people in the organization. So it's not just about you, it's about generations to come, and you cannot stop trying to be better. And lastly, I would say, never give up hope that the future can be and will be better. And we all want to have great relationships. We all want to have happy working relationships with people, and we want to be authentic and we want to be, you know, at our best all the time so that we can explore and build on our potentials. And that is all that I had for today. So I'll take you back to Teju.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Norah, for the session. It's not easy for each and everyone to share all the experiences they have in the different locations when they move on. We are glad that you have shared all the experience that you had shared it with us. Thank you once again. Thank you so much for that. We'll go ahead and take the question and answer session now. And I would like everyone who'd like to have give any questions. You are free to ask questions, or you can also put it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and ask yourself. Maureen says, so very proud of you, Norah. What an insight.
Thank you so much, Maureen.
If anyone would like to speak on with the speaker, you can unmute yourself and speak up.
I would love to hear from you guys. If anything came to mind while you are listening, if you have any questions, if you have any insights to add, that would be wonderful.
Okay. Thank you, Zoma.
Hello.
Hi.
I just wanted to commend you on your job, and also to say that I wish all organizations should have diversity and inclusion in their companies, and this would in turn make some of us, more creative, where we would have more input in some of the things that go on in the workplace. And yeah, I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maureen.
We have one question, Nora, from Francis. How to react in front of people who makes inappropriate comments?
Is this in the workplace?
Yes.
Okay. How to react when people make inappropriate comments. I think at that time you can be tempted to react in an emotional manner, and sometimes you can say things or do things, but as we go back to the presentation, you need to step back from that conversation, from that situation first. And I would advise going through your leader at the organization and pointing out what was wrong, and saying how exactly it made you feel, and making sure that you make it a point to say how you felt and what exactly you thought is supposed to happen, or what exactly is supposed to happen. I mean, you need to say it, and you need to make sure that you follow up on what happened after that, that it is addressed and it is amended.
On the story is really insightful. Thank you so much for sharing. Learned a lot to take out there.
Thank you so much. I'm glad.
Anyone else would like to ask any question? Okay, we have one question from Eric. Wonderful presentation, Nora. I learned a lot. Should companies have individuals who have responsibility for moving DEI forward? Thoughts on how to encourage all employees to take DEI responsibility?
Yes, I believe there should be a DEI committee, not DEI in people who are taking this on, because I think about South Dakota State University. It has an office for international affairs. And what this means is when they have this office, they have diverse people in that office, and they kind of understand the processes, and they know more about international students, and they're able to support them better. And so to me, they have these people who are, taking charge of this and making sure that something is happening. Because it's a lot, people have responsibilities and different roles at work, and not everyone is going to be able to take on, diversity, equity, and inclusion conversations and lead them and follow up on all of that. And so, yes, I think that there should be a team that is supposed to be looking into this. What Oh, thank you. Was there a second part of that question that I missed?
Yes, we have one more question from Laura. Within small companies with no so much organizational structure, how do you recommend implementing actions related to DEI?
Creating the structure. Sometimes you have to just look at the situation and see the best way going forward, because without the structure, it means equity, first of all, is at stake. This is where we look at the procedures, we look at the processes, and if DEI does not start from this structure, then it's difficult. And you need to have the leadership buy-in on all of this. And so without structure, it's very difficult to move ahead on this, because it will just be whatever. And you don't want that. You want to have a structure that starts at looking at the root of it. And it starts with looking at the processes and then leading towards trying to create these relationships. And thank you so much for those who have asked their questions. Thank you.
And Sandarin says, I believe that a barrier of diversity and inclusion also begins in higher management. It should be integrated into leadership and pass through the different levels of management. I
agree with that, because if your leader is not buying in on DEI, there's a problem, because if your leader is not working hard to move this ahead and be better, it means that everyone under is not taking this seriously, or the structures are not going to reflect what DEI should. And so it begins with leadership. And I think of DEI as everyone being a leader, because you have to charge of it on your own as well. But talking about structure, yes, leadership should, and it's not just audio, it's video as well. It's them saying and doing, and not just saying, because that creates this cycle of exhausted employees who have tried to make things better, and then they're not selected for leadership positions, yet they have more experience, and they have, in DEI especially, and they have the knowledge, but they're not given those leadership opportunities. And it's very disheartening and very frustrating.
Okay, Samson Oberai, he says, thanks for the information, Nora. Teammate mentioned that I have also heard and also being included in choosing the music, but I added that is choosing the music not feeling on top of the world, like not knowing you're bound. What do you think about it?
Not knowing your what, sorry?
Right,
Not
let me make it
your
clear,
bound.
please.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, Samson, you can.
Okay, Timmy, when you were talking about inclusion and the likes, you said there was a quote you showed us in your slide that diversity is not is being invited to a party, but inclusion is being asked to dance. So she asked that she has also, she mentioned rather that she has also heard that inclusion could be choosing the music. Diversity means that you are invited, but to our own opinion, inclusion means what? You can also choose the music to listen or to dance to. But I said, would choosing the music not be like you are feeling on top of the world or overcrossing your bound? So what do you think about it?
Thank you so much, Samson, for that question. So what I'm getting from Samson is, are you allowed to choose the music to dance to in your organization, right? And I think of this, if I come to your family, Samson, I'm not going to change everything that happens to your family. I'm not going to come and say, Samson, everyone now is going to be waking up at 5 o'clock and everyone is now going to be eating 1 meal a day. I'm using this metaphor because I want to show that you're not going to change that organization in the first place, because the organization already has a vision, it has a mission, and you being there as an employee is supposed to help this organization achieve these goals, okay? And you achieve these goals within your boundaries. You're not coming into the organization saying, we are changing this mission of this organization to be this. No, you're just trying to interact better with the organization and working with the organization management, you know, and sometimes they will let you choose the music. They will say, okay, Samson, we see that you're good at this space. Today you can choose the music. And sometimes you can. And once you have that opportunity, you take it and you grow and you move ahead. But you do this, of course, with respect. And all of this is with humility, respect, and to ensure you've created these good relationships with people as well as you work with them and you interact with them on a daily basis.
Understood.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, Nadia says, I feel that sometimes organizations use the concept of diversity, inclusion, and equity as a concept, but what happens on the ground is not really diverse.
Yeah, and I know that happens, and that is why we need to keep having these conversations. And it's sad because you find, yeah, they have the concept of DEI and they know all these terminologies. They know how to describe these terminologies, but there's nothing being done on the ground, as you say. And this is sad because this happens when we stop having that conversation. We stop sharing those experiences. We stop wishing for something better. But at the end of the day, we have to keep working on these things and we have to keep talking about it and we have to keep that conversation open and making sure you hold these people accountable. Like, okay, you know, you have these concepts. How are we addressing it? We are aware of these concepts. How are we addressing this? How are we amending this? You know, and such conversations should be objective and should lead to, you know, structure and should lead to, I think, good places.
Yes, Nadia. You've raised your hand.
No, I agree what you're saying, Nora. I think the sad part is that what I've noticed kind of recently that the concept around diversity, inclusion, and equity, a lot of especially big companies create these departments, but it's just stuck in those departments. It's not the reality in the rest of the world. But I agree, you do need to have those continuous conversations.
Yeah, so that you move it from that small room and have it affect the whole organization. And that is the question, because you will have these DEI toolkits that will talk about taking DEI, you know, tests and all of that. And then it doesn't say how, you know, and that's where now you need to figure the how out. And you need to have that conversation of, okay, you spoke about this in the DEI meeting, but what is being done in the organization? They need to work together and they need to be in sync, you know, and it's just not saying, it's doing again. Thank you, Nadia, for the question, your input.
Any other
Any
question?
Yep. I think we're at 1 minute, and I want to thank you again, everybody, for attending this. Your attendance has been greatly appreciated again, and thank you, APF team, for making this possible. Back to you, Teju.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Norah, and thank you so much, everyone, for your time, and also everyone else for participating in our session today. You'll be receiving a form link for feedback in the chat box. I've already shared it. Kindly request you all to share your feedback on the session. And we will also share the recording of the sessions with all the participants who have done RSVP. Also, we will upload the session to our APF YouTube channel as well. Thank you so much, everyone.